All right, folks, the gloves are off. The FBI raiding this morning, 7 a.m., the Bethesda residence of John Bolton. Went to his office as well. I'll get to everything you need to know about this here and, of course, what it means, where we're going from here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings. Welcome to the program. Good to be with you. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. So I know many of us delighted by this development. Of course, the allegation here is that Bolton had retained classified documents. And I think this was well known, and actually there was material in his book, information in his book that he had sought to publish that was everybody agreed was classified. So none of this is a secret. The big part of the story, and you won't read this in the New York Times, the big part of the story is that the Biden people apparently had Bolton dead to rights. Years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years, they were investigating him, and they decided to lay off Bolton. Why? Presumably because Bolton was useful in his targeting of Trump. Bolton was a former Trump official. He is a Republican. He is a Reagan Republican. He was very useful to the Biden regime as a critic of Trump, so he was let be. That's the dominant part of the story. So now, no one is above the law, as we were lectured for the past 4 years. So there was a raid, 7 in the morning, boom, boom, boom. They go in, they close the street off. I saw an interview with this is Bethesda, Maryland, right? This is the greater kind of suburbia of DC. This is where all the elites and swamp creatures live. Most of the people there are affiliated in some way, shape, or form with Washington. All right. This is the deep woods of the deep state. So I saw one of his neighbors come out of her abode, emerge, a classic boomer Karen, the wide eyes and the kind of the frumpy attire, total lib, okay? And she gets out there, cameras in her face. And they ask her, they say, okay, well, what do you think of this? Well, obviously, she says, obviously, this is a politically motivated action. And so, I have some sympathies. Mind you, this is her neighbor, right? But, she says, but you know what? John Bolton, maybe this serves him right. If only he had agreed to testify in the first impeachment proceeding, we would not be here. Meaning what she's saying is, because Bolton didn't participate in the first farcical effort to remove Trump from office, an effort that now has been completely discredited, right? Russia collusion, a hoax manufactured by Obama and Hillary Clinton. But because Bolton did not participate in that, did not testify, well, taha, he deserves what's happening to him. Boy, the Democrats, I tell you, folks, do not underestimate these people. They're nuts. So anyway, we got the raid going on, but Bolton was not at home. Bolton was not in his bolt hole, as one would say. I don't know where he is, but apparently some people are saying he's out of the country. I don't know. You know who was on the street? This was hilarious. What the hell was George Conway doing right outside the house? Did you see this, Robbie? Conway comes out, live streaming on his phone, looking every bit the deranged fool that he is. Going, whoa, look at this. Oh my God, it's happening. And I'll tell you, imagine for a minute, folks, that you are part of the inside job, the number that was done on Trump, that was done on Trump supporters, the January 6 families, that you have been in some way, shape, or form complicit in the systemic abuse of the justice system, of the FBI, of our Constitution, the past 4 years, perhaps longer. And you see this. This is how Trump treats a fellow Republican. Now, you're a Democrat. Let me tell you, your little backdoor hole is going to start puckering. Something fierce. That nervousness that you see on mainstream television, folks, if you get a chance tonight, I know it's Friday. I know I don't want to ruin your weekend, but I promise you it's good. Just turn on MSNBC for a moment. Just savor it. And when you watch it, what usually would infuriate you, I promise you, is really the sound of unadulterated fear. The hunter is Trump now. Formerly the hunted. Remember, I mentioned how he declared himself, oh, I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter. Well, ta-da, here he is. A first step. Now, I think it's brilliant. Some small observation about this, that the first target of Kash Patel's new and improved FBI is a fellow Republican. I think the optics of this are good, right? Trump isn't just going to go after Democrats. Now, of course, Bolton is a known critic, so much of the media in their commentary is almost forgetting the fact that Bolton is himself a Republican, so-called conservative. But you know, this is it. Now, I think, you know, again, it's, if you're picking your targets and you're thinking about a narrative that you're going to present to the public, this is not a bad way to go about it. I'm not going to predict what the next steps are or who the next target will be. I need to say something first before I play the very predictable media responses. I have to say something about the many, many decent Americans who were caught up in the highly politicized January 6th prosecutions. You had people that went to the Capitol, didn't break a single window, probably are on tape screaming at people who were breaking stuff to not do it, who are guilty, really, of no more than possibly a criminal a trespass, a misdemeanor, all right, which is a ticket, okay, a ticket, a fine, you're done. Book and release, okay? And these people, months after January 6th, woke up somewhere 6 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m., not even 7, crack of dawn, to SWAT teams from the FBI. And you know what the FBI would do to the J6ers? I don't know if you realize this. They would get out there and, on a bullhorn, and they would say, Sam Mirejovsky. So every one of my neighbors, it didn't happen to me. I didn't go. But let's say that I had. I thought of going. I was invited. People, my friends, wanted me to go. Sam Mirejovsky, come out with your hands up. This is the FBI. So every one of my neighbors would hear that I'm under FBI investigation. That's just one little, I'm just painting a picture for you to understand. Imagine, put yourselves in the position of these folks. Some of these people had never had a speeding ticket, for Pete's sake. Some of these people, most of them had never been arrested before. And all of a sudden, they are being subjected to basically the same type of treatment as a terrorist national security threat would be treated. I mean, forget even the mob. They got, the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, do-up by the FBI. So, and it was all designed to go full Gestapo on supporters of the president. It backfired. It backfired horrendously. The Democrats shot themselves in both feet. Hell, if the Democrats had 3 feet, were mutants, they would shoot themselves in all 3 of their appendages, lower appendages. That's how bad this was. But the intention behind it was to intimidate, to poison, to make radioactive any Trump supporter who dared to come to the Capitol and challenge the 2020 election. The whole thing was designed in its very intent and form as a chill on democracy and on, of course, on people having any kind of support for what the left perceived to be a very dangerous person, of course, Donald J. Trump. So when the media says, when you hear leftists this week and say, oh, police tactics, this is Gestapo tactics, this is political, spare me your crocodile tears. I want to hear it. I remember when this thing was first breaking out, and I remember saying here on the radio, this is a moment of I always say I'm always right, rarely wrong. And I don't know if this is me being wrong. This is me changing my mind. I remember I was on here and I said, folks, we have to resist the temptation as Republicans to do what the Democrats did, to exercise lawfare, and target our political enemies. Now, I don't think, and I stand by this to this day, I don't think that Kash Patel, or Pam Bondi or Trump should go after people gratuitously. But the gloves are off when it comes to anyone breaking the law on their side, on the opposition. What they did to us now renders them unworthy of a sliver, a speck of mercy from us. That's my most important message to you all here. We cannot, I'm not saying I am not saying that we should manufacture cases against people. But anywhere from what Hillary Clinton did, Barack Obama did, all the way down to this Lisa Cook lady who just likes to lie on mortgage applications. No one is above the law, and I want Trump and his Department of Justice and its extension, the FBI, to go after each and every one of these people who stood there for years going, no one's above the law, no one's above the law, we're going to get Trump, while they themselves were conducting themselves with lawless abandon. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings. Be back in a moment. We got a big show today, even though it's Friday, so just buckle up and stay tuned.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Well, people are asking if the FBI had a separate warrant for the mustache. I don't know. Okay, that's the short answer. Sam Mirejovsky here, host of the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your injury case. 702-820-1234. That's the number to the law firm if you've gotten hurt. Not the number to the show. Sometimes people call the law firm and they go, hey, we'd like to get on air with Sam. I said, okay, well, we'll work on that. Robbie, maybe at some point we will take some calls. You remember, Robbie, when you were screening calls on Hugh's show? Back in the day, I don't know if you guys know this about producer Robbie. He is an experienced radio professional and was once upon a time doing some producing work there for Hugh Hewitt and his radio show. Hugh is a friend of ours, so I'm not going to malign Hugh. We don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's okay. Robbie and I, we don't always see eye to eye on things either, although I will say over the past 4 years, he and I have become much more aligned. It pleases me to say. So if you want to reach me here while I'm on air, sam@whatsrightshow.com is the email. And maybe someday we're gonna take calls, and I I think as the show gets bigger, perhaps as we go national, might be something fun to do. All right, Bolton, the raid. There's always been reactions. There's reaction right in the morning. Now, I mentioned that George Conway, the insufferable pudgy midget, who is, he's still married to Kellyanne Conway. Remember, Kellyanne Conway was Trump's chief of staff in the first term. Kellyanne Conway is a Trump loyalist, had her faults, chief among them that she was married to a tool bag. George Conway, it's not even just that he's a lib. It's that he is an insufferable liberal. I have liberal friends. They're intelligent. They're smart. We disagree. We debate. Conway's not they're divorced. See, but you know what? Breitbart has this wrong. I saw a piece on Breitbart today describing this, and they had him as her husband. So, okay, ex-husband. Thank goodness. Best decision of Kellyanne Conway's life. Okay, I digress. He was on the scene. Must be a neighbor of Bolton's. And he's out there in some casual clothing, and he's got his phone, and he's reporting from the scene. And he was actually calling into a podcast. This is the Bulwark podcast with Jonathan Last, Tim Miller, Mona Charen, and George Conway. So it's an emergency session with George on the scene. And here's what they're saying. I think this is Jonathan's the one speaking, describing the state of where we are at now, given the raid against John Bolton's residence and office by the Trump administration.
It's gangster government now, and it's really something, because as Ben noted, John Bolton is not a gangster. If the government wanted to search his house, they could have done this cooperatively, right? They in the same way that this often happens with high-profile cases and people who are former government employees, who are not flight risks and who are trustworthy. You work through their lawyer, you arrange a time for your agents to come over and execute the search warrant. Closing off the street and hitting his house at 7 a.m., that's just intimidation.
What the frick was the raid on August 8th, 2022 against Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago? What kind of flight risk is Donald Trump? I understand he has 2 or 3 private jets, but he is the most recognizable man in the world. I mean, President Xi of China could open a laundromat in San Francisco and nobody would know who he is. Trump could, Trump could go to Tibet and people would know, would go, Donald. Okay, like I don't understand. Every bit of logic, so-called logic that you're going to hear from the media today, from the libs, is just, they lost this argument 3 years ago. Plain and simple. Now, by the way, it was even before 3 years ago. April 28th, 2021, Rudy Giuliani had his fashionable Upper East Side apartment raided by the FBI. Again, Rudy Giuliani, is he a gangster? Is he a terror watch list? This is ridiculous. And this is all over a supposed FARA violation. This is the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Paul Manafort, 2017. Remember Paul Manafort briefly, Trump's campaign manager. He apparently had not registered as a foreign agent. A number of Democrats haven't done this either. He was targeted specifically because he worked on the Trump campaign. Michael Cohen, our favorite little weasel, also raided in 2018. Jeff Clark, Jonathan Buma. I mean, the list goes on and on, not to mention all of the poor men and women who dared to go to the Capitol to support Trump on January 6th, and largely We're peaceful. So when the left comes out and calls this raid on John Bolton's house excessive and a gangster move and all about intimidation, I'm just not entirely persuaded. Okay. By the way, speaking of Bolton, when we come back, let's play his thoughts following the raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago. That's interesting. Sam Mirejovsky, back in a moment. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, welcome to the program. Happy Friday. All the good stuff. Reach me at sam@whatsrightshow.com. sam@whatsrightshow.com. Of course, on X, formerly known as Twitter, I am active from time to time. Pretty much every day. I react to stuff as it happens. So you are interested in following me, please do so at What's Right Sam. Big update today, I guess. A blink from Canada. You can't let this get lost in the shuffle. Canada has quietly removed some of its higher, more retaliatory tariffs, apparently in an overture to Trump. And the simple read on the situation is that it's a blink. Canada's economy is spiraling downward. And I think they realize it's a trade war they can't win. America can simply continue to exist without the Canadian market. It just doesn't work the other way around. So Mark Carney was wrong about this. Elbows up is all bull crap, and Trump is going to end up victorious on this, which means, of course, it's good news for us. Incidentally, Bessent claims, Scott Bessent claims that over 10 years' time, we're going to see what was it, $3 trillion or $2 trillion? It's not an insignificant sum, get taken out of the national debt. So the tariffs, right? The tariffs are going to start reducing our national debt. This is, again, more good news. So Trump so far seems to be doing great. And the markets are rebounding because Powell up in Jackson Hole at one of these hoity-toity finance conferences has claimed that it's time to drop rates. Of course it is. We knew this. Everybody knew this, but the Federal Reserve, now under fire by Trump's finally admitting it. So all of this good news. Here is what's bad news. I guess bad news for the Democrats. The first raid now effected against John Bolton. Bolton accused of retaining classified documents. Bolton not enjoying the same privileges that Trump had as president and former president. I explained this many a time, and so, of course, for those of you who are longtime listeners, forgive me. I'm going to just repeat myself briefly. For the new ones listening to the program, here's the scoop. A president, while he is president, can declassify anything, and there is no formal procedure to do so. Building a case against a former president for retention of classified documents is extremely difficult because you have to prove, if you're prosecuting the case legitimately, you have to prove that that person, say Donald Trump, for example, didn't declare all the documents that he was taking with him 11:58 a.m. in the last minutes of his term as president. He didn't declare them declassified. Trump could have easily done this. Anyone else, including the vice president of the United States, by the way, the vice president does not have this power and authority, can't do that. So the only excuse for him to have a classified document is if someone else, through a procedure and it be recorded, declassified it, or he had specific permission to have that document in his possession. The case against Pence, open and shut. The case against President Biden from the documents he retained from his vice presidency when he was vice president with Barack Obama, open and shut. Documents weren't declassified. There's no record of them being declassified, and he did not have authority to declassify them on his own. Bolton's going to have the same problem. When Bolton, a day after the raid on Mar-a-Lago, goes on national television to slam Trump about his handling of classified documents, he doesn't mention that Trump, as president, has this unilateral authority to declassify. So here's and again, I don't feel bad for Bolton at all. I'm loving that the hammer of justice is coming down on all these clowns. I don't care where the FBI starts. I'm excited. I'm here for it. All of it. I just want anybody out there who's perhaps harboring some sentimentality, John Bolton, once of the Reagan administration, feeling bad for him. Listen to how he was talking about Trump following the August 8th raid on Mar-a-Lago in 2022.
I don't think he cared about the classification system. I don't think he appreciated the sensitivity of this information, and he didn't appreciate the sensitivity of how it was often acquired, the so-called sources and methods. So this had been briefed to him before I arrived. It was repeated frequently. I think it simply had no impact on him whatever.
There's a couple of different ways that people think about this, and people who are not friendly to the president, who think about what's happened here. And one of them is, Donald Trump, master thief, criminal, running some kind of elaborate conspiracy to bring things out of the White House and keep them secret for potentially for political or financial gain. There are other people whose attitude is Trump is chaotic, he's careless, he's not that smart. He took these things almost by mistake, and now he's basically stamping his feet and saying they're mine. I don't want to give them up. Give me a sense of where you think the truth lies with respect to Trump's intelligence, carelessness, and the degree to which he might have brought motive to bear on taking these documents out of the White House and keeping them for this long at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, it's very hard to speculate on motive other than that he liked cool things. He saw things so he wanted to take them, and he was pretty much able to take them, and not just on classified information matters, on all kinds of things that crossed his desk. Some days he liked to eat a lot of French fries. Some days he took classified documents. He wanted them. Why did he want them? Because he could get them.
There's not even hidden. They're in plain sight. These moments where the elites drop the mask. So this is John Bolton on MSNBC in August following the raid on Mar-a-Lago, and he's a former employee of the Trump administration, somebody who owed Trump some degree of loyalty. He got fired for being insane, by the way, for wanting to push America into war. Trump was elected as a peacemaker president in 2016 and again in 2024. Those were the mandates given to Trump by the American people. But guys like John Bolton think they know better. They are the elites. They are the experts. The condescension of experts is a theme, is a recurring theme, a through line in our recent American history. It flared certainly during COVID. Now remember, listen to the experts, trust the science. Turns out it was all bull crap. The experts didn't know anything. And people hungry for power were leaning on and hiding behind so-called expertise in order to justify their authoritarianism. But here's something else. It was a throwaway line. I just want you to hear it. Some days he liked to eat a lot of French fries. Some days he took classified documents. Read this as Donald Trump is a rube. Donald Trump eats French fries. Donald Trump eats fast food. Donald Trump isn't that smart. Do you have any idea the level of condescension that these people have for us? Even go back 10 years. Go back to before the ascendancy of Trump. Go back to a time when it was the Mitt Romneys of the Republican Party that had power. Okay? Now, by the way, those were Bolton's bedfellows. Okay, Bolton could run with the Romneys of the world. That was exactly, the two peas in a pod. But even Bush, right? George H.W. Bush, of course, a consummate Washington, D.C. insider. The condescension that these people have for those of us that enjoy a French fry or two, that enjoy a beer, that just are normal people and dare say, you know what, those illegals coming across the border, we don't want that. This is why for years and years and years, these people would pretend to appeal to us, Republican grassroots voters, and then do something completely different in office, basically sell out to the globalists because that's who they were. And then they come back to us 4 years later. They come back to us in the midterms. They promise us a load of stuff, said all the right things, put all the right things in the flyers. We would donate to the party. We would vote for these candidates. While our country may as well have at the same time been governed by Democrats. It almost felt that way, right? Trump exists. Trump, in 2015, the ascendancy of Trump, the 2016 victory of Donald J. Trump is a direct product of the condescension you hear from John Bolton about Trump in this clip. Trump is he's a self-made guy, obviously, in a political sense, right? This is something Trump created for himself, but the support that Trump has, in large part, is a creation of people like Bolton. Because you and I were absolutely, we were taken advantage of, and that's a light way of putting it, by the Republican Party before Trump came along. And this is why I always say the history books are going to be very, very flattering of Trump when they finally somebody sits down and writes a dispassionate analysis of everything, because Trump took on not just the Democrats, he took on the Republicans, he took on his own party. He took on the entire political establishment, so-called left and right. And the axis was returning power to the people. Do you, as a singular individual, feel more power in today's society than you did before Trump? For me, the answer is 1,000%. Hell yeah. So just got to listen to how these people talk. And they're all throwaway lines, but they're coming out now more and more. Speaking of which, in Virginia, oh my gosh, I got to get to that. One of these lib protesters held up a sign, and it might as well spell the end of the Democratic Party. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in just a moment. John Bolton, people don't realize this, was very outspoken against the confirmation of Kash Patel as director of the FBI. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, behind the What's Right microphone. So one of the clips that is now circulating, people digging it up, as we have here on the What's Right show, John Bolton in January, late January, 8 days after Trump became president, going on his favorite network, MSNBC. They haven't rebranded yet, Robbie, right? MSN Now is going to be their new name. Anyway, Bolton's favorite network, he's on there all the time, on CNN as well. But MSNBC is one of his faves, and he's, he does not think Kash Patel is up for the job.
And this is important when you think about him potentially being director of the FBI. You can have a lot of different jobs in government. You have to know what your job is and what your limits are. And Kash Patel, sort of like a climbing weed, just doesn't show respect for the limits.
No respect for the limits. Kash Patel is a weed. A weed. Think about this. Again, with that elitist language, I have alerted you to. A weed is something you spray weed killer on. It's something you abate. It's something unwanted. You know, you know what I see? I see Kash Patel as an avenging angel. I see him as somebody who's absolutely brilliant and uncompromising. That's the real threat to the deep state here, right? The idea of Kash Patel, someone who could not be compromised, being at the head of the FBI, scared the living daylights out of John Bolton and his cohort of merry deep state losers. This much is a certifiable fact. That's why everybody's quaking in their boots. I was joking that, it's like I did put out a tweet this morning, at What's Right Sam, by the way, on X. Put out this tweet, and I said, it's all the deep state people very nervous, checking for chances of raid, because that's going to be the new thing. I mean, they're all going to be talking among themselves, basically a death pool of sorts, trying to figure out who's the next clown to have a circus shut down. I mean, Comey is high up there. I don't know. John Solomon, by the way. Great reporting by John Solomon. If you're not following him, he is absolutely all over this. JustTheNews.com editor. I'm going to be on his show, incidentally, I think next week. So I'm looking forward to talking to him about some of this stuff directly. But regardless, Solomon has been merciless, and he's come out with some reporting on Comey. All the stuff that Comey deliberately lied about. And the classified information that Comey himself released. Now, it's the classified information that has me interested. Presumably, when the FBI and the DOJ generally is conducting an investigation, they will set up teams to tackle different issues. So, the classified documents, matter, generally speaking, as a violation. There's going to be a team dedicated to that. If the allegation, and so Comey has different problems, right? One of his silo of trouble is, of course, his role in the Russia collusion hoax. That Comey deliberately lied about intel and manufactured intel, and the predicate for, basically manufactured intel and then used it in warrants. Okay, knowingly bad intel, used it in warrants to go and spy on the Trump campaign and create all sorts of problems for Trump, both when Trump was running and later when he was president. So that's one element. But the other element, of course, is that he had his little friend there in New York, the professor, who was an intermediary, leaking everything, classified information, routinely. And they're getting at him. But trust me, the FBI has already visited this man, who in a previous 402 went out and said, oh, well, I couldn't definitively tell you that I didn't give any or pass any classified information. It was the most, it was the biggest non-denial I've ever seen. Of course, the FBI dropped the investigation, and you can only imagine as to why. Well, Kash Patel, given that he is a quote-unquote climbing weed, ain't dropping any of this. I can tell you that right now. Those buggy Kash Patel eyes are affixed firmly on the target here, which is every one of these people who, while they themselves were breaking various federal laws and behaving with a great degree of immorality. I mean, just like that's fundamental. We're going after grandmothers who showed up on January 6th or who dared protest in front of an abortion clinic, right? Just like it's people deserve everything terrible that is coming their way. So that's the gist of it. Now, I mean, look at it. Jonathan Turley. Gave a long interview today on Fox, and he basically said it's gonna be 5 to 20 years, 5 to 20. This could be a death sentence for Bolton, a death sentence should he potentially not get should he get convicted. Okay, so I'm just pointing this out. It's a lot of moving pieces. Now when we come back, I want to get into the situation that is happening right now, this election in Virginia. Winsome Sears there, who's the lieutenant governor, who is African American, is battling an opponent who is a Democrat, a white Democrat, and it's getting hot. So I want to talk about this. And of course, updates in D.C. Guess who's not getting murdered now that there is law and order in town? Fascinating stuff. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Yes. Big day today. Lots of things going on. I saw Mark Carney speaking. Well, I mentioned earlier that Canada is dropping some of its retaliatory tariffs. This is a blink. No question about it. Mark Carney's trying to put a brave face on it, but he looks ashen. I think it's things are not going well in Canada, to say the least. Sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email, at What's Right Show on X, formerly known as Twitter. So there is a race in Virginia for governor heating up. Two sides of that race, of course, a Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, who is herself a woman of color. Now, I'm saying this simply because, one, if she were running as a Democrat, it's all we would ever hear. But because she's running as a Republican, people just like her for her positions, which is how it ought to be. Now, she's running against a bit of a wing nut, if you ask me. There's a former member of Congress, this lady named Spanberger. And there's pictures of Ms. Spanberger in some really intense PPE wear. She was a big masker. Let's just put it that way. So Spanberger. Anyway, there was a rally, or a meeting, I should say, a political meeting, at a school board meeting yesterday in Arlington. And the school board was there to discuss its transgender bathroom policy. Now, the reason that this is important is because there was a terrible incident in Virginia where a man masquerading as a woman he was a registered sex offender, was allowed to repeatedly stroll into a girls' high school locker room. This is because of a school policy there that lets grown men pick their bathroom instead of based on their true gender identity. All right? And the superintendent there has been pretty vocal about this, supporting this individual and trying to pass this off somehow. So anyway, my point is there's some controversy here. And this older lady, 65 or so, maybe 70, is holding up a sign. Now, I've got the sign here, all right? And the mainstream media doesn't want to touch this anymore, but it's all over X and you can see it. And this woman, clearly a Democrat, not a fan of the lieutenant governor, who is, again, I have to, for the purposes of this point I'm going to make, is black. The sign that she's holding reads, "Hey, Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then blacks can't share my water fountain." Oh, what? I always talk here about recurring themes. One of the recurring themes is, right now, is the mask off. The mask off. The left is dropping a lot of its pretenses. One of which is that they are anti-racist. It's the biggest load of bunk ever. There's no greater, bigger group of absolutely racist individuals as the political left. This is outrageous. A black lady, you can't use the drink. If you're not gonna let a adult male sex offender into a girl's bathroom in a high school, then black people shouldn't be able to use the drinking fountain. What? What? This level of insanity. And here's the best part. There's a video. I'm not going to play it because the audio is very, very faint. But she's standing there in the school board meeting. She's got the sign, and another elderly gent comes up to her and tells her, "Oh, your sign is getting a lot of play in the media." Kind of a, "Shh, your sign is getting a lot of play." And and then the woman just goes like, okay, and then he has to tell her, negative. Negative. These people they're such bigots. I mean, listen, okay, are you surprised? Jasmine Crocker, every time she opens her mouth, it's all about race. Joy Reid, it's always about race. Crockett, Joy Reid, it's always about race. It's just, yes, everything is always about race. So why wouldn't they use racial language? It's how they think. Nope, I got into a thing about this with somebody recently. So you Republican, you guys are just racist against dark and brown people, and I was appalled by it because I think last time I checked, our vice president of the United States, the likely next president of the United States, married to Indian lady. I mean, he's got brown kids. I don't see anybody bothered by it on, in my group of friends. We care about merit. We literally don't want to see color. We don't care. I mean, it doesn't, it literally doesn't. Now, we are arresting people here in the country illegally who are here from Germany. There's just not as many of them, given that Germany and the United States don't share a border that has been open for the past 4 years and frankly much longer. So immigration enforcement, I'm sorry to say, is not a targeting of people of color. But again, the left sees it this way. They've been emotionally programmed to think this way, and so they think it's okay to use this type of put up this kind of sign and even think this stuff, let alone broadcast it to the world. Anyway, Robbie, it reminds me one time many years ago when Newt Gingrich was in power in the midst of the Monica Lewinsky mess. I went to a rally in California, a political event. I think it was an election night party, if memory serves. And I held up a sign that got into the media. The sign I held up was Newt, okay? Newt-ER Clinton. Newt or Clinton. Yeah, I thought that was, pretty funny actually in the moment, but yes. So, I did have, by the way, some TV guy get really mad at me. You're blocking the shot. I said, well, no problem, but my sign's more important than whoever local county Republican here droning on is. Trust me. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. We'll do a quick break. We'll get to D.C. Can you believe where all the murders at? This is the District of Columbia. We should have way more murders, but none are happening. I wonder why.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Well, apparently, D.C. now, according to critics on the left, is under military rule. That's the story. That's how they are presenting this. D.C. is occupied by American forces. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. So, somebody on Twitter, a D.C. Washingtonian, some lady claiming to be a resident. Of course, you can imagine what her politics are. Perhaps maybe even her hair color, as I come to think of it. Anyway, this is a great moment. She writes here, her name's Jen Monroe. I like how people who have never lived in D.C., who would never live in D.C. and are scared to come to D.C., have very strong opinions about crime in D.C. She goes on to say, it's not Fallujah, it's just a normal city. Now, if you look at homicide stats before they began cooking them in the District of Columbia, you realize that for the past 2 years, they had about 27 to 40 per 100,000 people homicide rate there. Iraq apparently is somewhere between 2 to 4 per 100,000. Fallujah specifically at 3 to 5. So that would make, I guess, D.C. about 8 times worse than even Fallujah. Just a side note, what's been going on there now? Well, the District of Columbia is experiencing a shortage of crime. This is unbelievable. D.C. has gone, yesterday was a full week, today is 8 days, a full week and a day without a homicide. That is, I think, unprecedented. Certainly has not happened for years. Even the Washington Post is marveling at this. Now, this is, by the way, the Dems are still fighting it. The Dems are still out there. This is part of this is absolutely mind-blowing. The Dems are still mad as hell about this. Acosta, did you see this Acosta thing? Jim Acosta, our favorite intrepid CNN reporter who sparred as White House correspondent with Trump in Trump's first term, went on his little podcast. It's a video that he self-produced. And he's congratulating D.C. residents for their bravery and courage during the occupation. Listen to this.
And I just want to say I take my hat off. Kudos to the people of Washington, D.C. for showing not just bravery and courage, but patience and restraint in the face of what is, and I'm just going to go out here and say it, an occupation. People of Washington, D.C. are living under an occupation.
Well, this is funny. I watched a video yesterday of a National Guardsman walking, supporting on his arm an elderly Washingtonian as she stepped down the steps to the subway, carrying her cart. Where she had her shopping. One of those little rolly bags that when you go shopping and you don't want to carry things. I've seen scenes and photographs of local youths, and instead of being out there and gangbanging, they're getting their pictures taken with National Guardsmen. Tourists, likewise, getting mementos, getting photographed with the National Guard and police. I'm seeing Democrats who are going, but this is pretty good. Like we're in much better shape. Remember when I told you at the outset of this that this would be a huge PR coup for Trump. I stand by that to this day. And I think, folks, I think it's going to get even better. Now, you know, Trump, for his part, is so pro law enforcement. He's winning over the cops, and he went out yesterday on the streets, went and rode around and participated in patrols himself, of course, flanked by the military and the Secret Service. And Trump got out of his car and had a meeting there with some of the law enforcement officers and National Guardsmen who were flanking him. And he had these words of gratitude to express.
You people are winners, and I just think it's such an honor to be with you. And we're going to make Washington, D.C. great again. We're making our country great again. The country is very close to being great. When they say it's the hottest country in the world, they mean it. And this Capitol is right now, after 4 days, 5 days, it's at a level that you haven't seen in a long time, and it's all because of you. So I want to thank you all very much. It's an honor to be with you, and we'll always be with you. We're going to be with you for as long as I'm around. You're going to be treated as nobody more important, and thank you all very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Doug, would you like to say something? Thank you, everybody.
And he hands the mic over to Doug Burgum, who has his own remarks. By the way, you can just tell everybody's beaming. I mean, cops love Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the law enforcement president. And he's been this way in and out of office. A good buddy of mine who is a Beverly Hills police officer, Trump, whenever he's been out in California, both as president and as former president, and even before as a private citizen running for office, Trump has had numerous interactions with my friend and his Department of Police there, Beverly Hills cops, if you will. And Trump is always, always beyond magnanimous and thoughtful and supportive of the police. What an enormous change from the Obama years and certainly from the Biden administration. Anyway, side note on that. Now, Trump went out. This is great. He basically he's in his gift shop at one point. The People's House gift shop, goes there unannounced. It was not in the schedule. And of course, wherever Trump goes, the cameras go and the reporters go, and he's just talking. He talks to the media all the time, almost like Joe Biden, except not. So anyway, he basically says, hey, I wish Muriel Bowser, I wish the mayor of D.C. would just have admitted that they needed help.
They needed help. They don't like to say it. I wish they'd say, I need help. I wish the mayor of D.C. would say, you know, we're overridden with crime and we need help, instead of saying the stats are down. I mean, they're under investigation now for fake numbers, where they fudged the numbers. And they did. There's no question about it. They said, oh, we're on a downtrend for 20 years. No, they're on an uptrend for 20 years. We are going to make D.C. totally safe. When people come from Iowa, Indiana, all of the beautiful places, and they're not going to go home in a body bag. They're not going home in a coffin.
This is exactly right. And it's not just visitors. It's the people that live there. They were completely neglected by their own government. And by the way, this is what Democrats do. Wherever they go, they neglect their own for the sake of political power. It's really astonishing. So as this kind of controversy is brewing, and it's not really even a controversy because we're winning, Trump is winning, Washingtonians are winning, people aren't dying. Think about this. Think there are, 8 days of no murder, first time in years that we've had such a safety streak. Of course, we know why. Now, think about it. What if that is your loved one? What if one of those murders was your friend or relative, your spouse, your kids visiting D.C. as a tourist, living in D.C.? Somewhere there are a minimum of 8 families that aren't planning funerals today because of this. Just want that to set in. But brewing in this debate, right? the cynics, well, not even just the cynics, the haters really, are out there talking about this. Not just Jim Acosta, it's all sorts of people. And there was this great clip, and I had it yesterday. We had it. It was from Wednesday on social media. It's an attractive babe, nice-looking woman, who is questioning. Of course, she's liberal, so she's psycho. Guys, don't date her; she'll burn your house down, or worse. But anyway, she puts out this clip here, and I pay close attention to how she frames this because she basically calls out MAGA men for being snowflakes and afraid of these dangerous liberal cities.
We truly are not bullying MAGA men as much as we should. Because what do you mean you're scared of cities? Cities? Like downtown? You're scared of that? You're supposed to be the protectors, right? Aren't you all the one pushing the gendered bullshit that men have to protect women? What are you protecting us from? I strap my toddlers into a car and drive them downtown literally weekly and think nothing of it. But you, my guy, won't go within a 5-mile radius without your Glock and being strapped up? I think we should be bullying them more.
Yeah, you know what I think? I think she hasn't heard about Daniel Penny. Remember that MAGA guy who wasn't strapped up, went in the subway, protected people, and then ended up on trial for 2 years of his life? What a psycho hag. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. These people are broken. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right show, back from an obscene profit timeout, as Rush would call it. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. The Maryland man, also known as Kilmar Abrego Garcia, has been released from jail. He was accused of human smuggling. He is an illegal immigrant. And he was sent down to CCOT down in his native El Salvador, and then brought back to the U.S. to face charges of human trafficking. And now, I presume he was just released out on bail. Is he going back to Maryland? That's what they said. He's going back to Maryland, and I wonder if it's anywhere near John Bolton Street. Right? It was Bethesda, Maryland. That's where John Bolton, that's where the raid took place. If I were Kilmar Abrego Garcia, I would keep my human smuggling activities, my gangbanging activities, as far away from Washington, D.C., where Trump's elevated police presence no doubt will prove a hindrance to Mr. Abrego Garcia's favored activities. So we'll follow the story, friends. Fear not. I'll tell you, you know, it's such an 80-20 issue. It's so we're on the right side of it. Who thinks it's a good idea that a guy that has been captured on tape in Tennessee with 10 or 12 people in the car going, oh, I don't know what's going on, I don't speak English. You think it's a good idea to release this person out into polite society? You think anything good can come of this? I understand maybe the judge didn't have basis for bail, whatever. I would have kept the guy in custody, but this is not a winner for the Democrats. You know my prediction is? My prediction is, Robbie, this guy's going to get himself in trouble when he's out on bail. This guy wasn't earning a living fully as a journeyman, electrician or whatever the hell he was. There is a reason why he was getting himself into trouble. There's a reason why he was transporting 10 people in his car late at night. That's what he relied on for means of support. Trust me when I tell you, the Trump authorities are going to have their eagle eyes on this guy, and it's not going to go well for the Democrats because they've made this guy a cause celebre. So anyway, this is an 80-20 issue. The crime thing, generally speaking, 80-20 issue. The border, whatever, 70-30 issue. huge amounts of public support for securing the border, keeping America safe, of course, protecting ourselves from external enemies, but also at the same time maintaining the rule of law. Here's another thing that I think will really quickly develop into an issue that receives broad support. When we talk about prosecuting these deep state characters like, for example, John Brennan or James Clapper, there is this perception, I think right now still, by both conservatives and liberals alike, that these are people who have presented themselves as enemies of Trump, okay? And as such, Trump is, and they've done bad, we know that they've done bad things to Trump. The left thinks that they were protecting democracy. In either event, it relates to Trump, stopping Trump, obstructing Trump, damaging Trump, etc. And, maybe the only disagreement between us and them is the justification for doing it. I think as this story develops, we're going to find that these guys, like Clapper, for example, that his fingerprints, his damage, the way he conducted business, didn't exclusively do harm to Donald Trump. That these people, okay, people like Clapper, were doing damage to our country for decades. For decades. That they could go back to the Iraq War. And it's very simple, right? There's no question that the Bush people, these are Republicans, right? These were Republicans, and the Bush people came in and said, listen, we got to find a predicate, a reason to attack Iraq. And we think there are these weapons of mass destruction. And I remember Hans Blix. Blix was his name? Blick? Hans Blick? Whatever. Blix, I think was his name. Yeah. Robbie's giving me the thumbs up. That's a callback there. Remember when that guy's name was in the news every day? Every day we heard about Hans Blix. Anyway, so there's looking for weapons. Where are the weapons? We don't know where the weapons. Now, the Bush people says, find me the stuff. Now, this was a throwaway interview that a lot of people didn't even notice this week, but I want to come back to it because we have Tulsi Gabbard in her position now, cleaning house, and she's going through the records. She's going through the receipts. And one of the things that she's talking about, which I think is really important, is that Clapper's fingerprints were all over the WMD scam in the Bush era. That he was one of the principal architects of all that nonsense. And think about the thousands of wounded and dead Americans that resulted from this. This isn't about Trump, yay or nay, like Trump or don't like Trump. I think a majority of Democrats today and a majority of Republicans today are willing to agree to large part that the Iraq War was a boondoggle. Right? I think that's a majority issue. Listen here. This was such an important moment, and I don't want to end the week before we play it. Yesterday on Fox Business, Tulsi Gabbard going back to some of Clapper's history. Remember, Clapper is also the guy that then organized the letter with the 50 whatever to top people and protected Biden and was conspiring with Brennan and others to get Trump. So, but in his previous life, right, Clapper was already doing things that were detrimental to the United States of America.
The deep state, unfortunately, has existed within our government and within the intelligence community for much longer than it precedes President Obama. It precedes Hillary Clinton. I'll go back to kind of the first example in my own life that was an eye-opening experience when the deep state was activated, and specifically James Clapper had a hand in this, in the manufacturing of intelligence claiming that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to justify, under the Bush administration, going to war. What was interesting is we look at what happened then, and I served in Iraq along with well over 1 million service members over the course of that war. And then you fast forward to the weaponization of intelligence that we just exposed recently over the last few weeks, claiming that Putin aspired to help Trump get elected in 2016, which the intelligence did actually not reflect. This was politically motivated weaponization. And the fact that James Clapper was President Obama's director of national intelligence at that time, and then you go back, more than 20 years prior to that, when James Clapper himself wrote in his book that his fingerprints were all over that fake Iraq WMD intelligence assessment. And he specifically said that he was a part of the team that found something that was not there. So unfortunately, the deep state has been firmly entrenched within our government. Under President Trump's leadership, we're getting after it and doing our very best to root out those bad actors.
This is exactly right. It comes on the heels of Tulsi doing something else, which is Wednesday announcing that the ODNI, which is her office, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, would be cut by 50%. It would save taxpayers about $700 million. That really what we have here, when we talk about the deep state, these are not anti-Trump people. I mean, they are, because Trump is an existential threat to their way of life, but they are anti-America. They are anti-us, you and I. And actually, a lot of my Democrat friends, if we just stripped Trump away from it, if we just separated the political polarization from this, which is natural, of course, given today's climate, but you take all that out, I think they would agree, everyone would, that our military deserves to have good intelligence. That you can't have people inside these offices and agencies charged with giving good intelligence, good information to our country's leadership, that they be politically compromised either way. You have to have people who are going to be kind of like Joe Friday, famous radio, then later TV cop on Dragnet. What's his famous line? Just the facts, ma'am. He'd be interviewing somebody and some lady would just go on about stuff that didn't matter. Just the facts, ma'am. And that's what we need to get back to. I think what you are seeing here, remember Tulsi Gabbard is herself a recovering Democrat. You're seeing there's going to be more people that are in the middle, certainly. Not on the far left, but in the middle, even the center left, who will find some of the stuff that comes out now very persuasive and anger. It'll be angering to them. Not all of it has to do with Trump. And this is an example of how Trump is very wise to do so many popular things, be it the border, be it crime, be it the economy, be it writing, our trade practices, our trade agreements with countries, making, getting repatriating jobs to the country. These are all enormously popular developments. And he's just methodically and systematically going through and getting it done, and has already accomplished so much in a short period of time. What a time to be alive. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere, folks. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, behind the What's Right microphone. Trump today at the White House, 9 o'clock in the morning, announcing a FIFA event, soccer event. They call it football in Europe, at the Kennedy Center. And so he had a little press conference, and he got asked if he would be participating in the FIFA events and the soccer events. And Trump had just the absolute best line. I have to share this with you. Listen.
It's going to be a big event at the Kennedy Center. Do you intend to take part in it? Will you have a part to play in on December 5th?
I might play. I mean, I see the money that these soccer players, we call it soccer, but I see the money that these soccer players are making. I may try and play. I'm a very good athlete. My son is a very good athlete, and he's a good soccer player. He's on the tall side for soccer. Yeah. He's 6'9". That's pretty tall, but
that's pretty tall.
It's on the tall side.
He's good.
It's on the tall side, but he's good. But no, I may put on shorts. I look extremely good in shorts and join the play. No, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be good.
Many for.
Yeah, so Trump's like, hey, I look great in shorts. By the way, I'm a great athlete. He knows, Trump is funny. This is the thing that his haters can never fully appreciate. He is funny. And the reporters are all chuckling in the room. And it's perfect. And the contrast between him and Newsom, of course, this past week has been ferocious in his repositioning as the leading and chief antagonist of Trump's, the crazy Twitter account that's out there writing, spewing stuff, all caps. Not particularly funny, but it's also so nasty. I don't know. Sometimes I think that Trump almost played all of this too perfectly. Trump comes out in 2015, lands on the scene, and he is nasty. Of course, he's quick, he's sharp, he's TV honed. He understands the power of a soundbite, and he just comes in. But Trump was, okay, let's be honest. Trump, little Marco, and the stuff, you play some of the clips from Trump in 2015, and it's just, wow. I mean, it was brutal. But it got everybody's attention. It also pissed a lot of people off. They, in turn, start to develop a syndrome we later called Trump derangement. It didn't have yet a scientific name, but it was beginning to spread voraciously through the liberal left community. So then Trump goes through hell and back, including almost losing his life. And I said this at the time, that we would see a different Trump post-assassination attempt. This was, of course, in July of 2024, just over a year ago. And Trump has emerged from that a much calmer, a much more philosophical. I'm just telling you. Don't get mad. Robbie's looking at me funny. I think he has. He's absolutely a far more mellow guy. And now the Gavin Newsoms of the world are trying to match Trump energy from 2015 and 2016, maybe 2017. And Trump's moved on, and he's becoming the elder statesman, and he's taken the, as the Brits say, taking the mick out of himself. He's making fun. He's playing it. He's like, oh, I look great in shorts. He does not look great in shorts. Trump doesn't really wear shorts because he knows he doesn't look good in them. It's being funny. It's self-deprecating humor. It is something you will not see from Gavin Newsom because he's a thin-skinned sociopath. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you of where we're at, and always want to step back from it a little bit and tell you that Trump has definitely evolved. Old dog learning new tricks, yes, but some of it also is just from some profound experiences. Imagine you're Trump. The 4 years that you were out of office are a living hell. Former allies have turned their backs on you. The new incoming administration goes scorched earth on you. You, by the way, you believe you won the election. You've looked at evidence of that, and nobody will hear you out. You are cheated out of what's rightfully yours. You are the target of not one but many conspiracies. Your home is violated by the FBI. They go through your wife's unmentionables, okay? Your son's bedroom. They levy a $500 million fine against you. They seek to destroy you financially. They sick some crazy squirrel lady from New York on you, E. Jean Carroll. Oh, he raped me in a dressing room back in, when FDR was president. I mean, I could keep. They try to kill you, not once but twice. You are going to emerge from this a changed person. Gavin Newsom and every other Democrat out there right now playing Mr. Tough Guy is shadowboxing with the Trump that doesn't exist anymore. Meaning they're picking a fight with 2015 Trump, not 2025 Trump. I always try to adjust thinking and framing of certain things. If you just look at, at the stuff that's going, just look at it through that lens, it'll start to make a lot more sense. Now, earlier today, I mentioned this. Of course, there's markets have gone wild because Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, has come out and said that a rate drop is in the cards. We knew this is obviously going to happen. I think it's going to be a bigger fireworks are going to come from the Federal Reserve. And one of them, of course, is that Lisa Cook, it's just getting worse for her by the moment. This is the Board of Governor down there. And I think she's on the Atlanta Board of Governors. She's got a condo there. It's one of the two mortgages, even though she claimed that she was first a resident of Michigan and that her property was a primary residence up in Michigan. Two mortgages, 2 weeks apart. We covered it yesterday. So now there is, check this out. They have found that she really did list her property in Atlanta up for rent. She put it up for rent, and then she claimed that she had moved to Atlanta to take this job as a Atlanta-based, Georgia-based Board of Governors. It's the same thing as Schiff. It's the same thing as Letitia James. Just absolutely, these people, just wait and see. It's not going to get any better for you. Great weekend, folks. See you Monday.